We all know that fairy tales are just that, fairy tales. They're fictional stories about fantastical lands with their own heroes and villains. You might think that these whimsical stories, filled with enchanting creatures, magical spells, and happily ever afters, are purely the stuff of imagination. But today, in a shocking revelation of irony, we'll find out that the Disney company started its own fairy tale, where the evil king that terrorized the townspeople was beaten at his own game. Disney's very own fairy tale goes something like this. Once upon a time, in a magical land where dreams come true, there lay an enchanted kingdom filled with wonder, adventure, and a sprinkle of pixie dust. This realm was nestled within a land of swaying palm trees, sun-kissed beaches, and vibrant orange groves. Hello, Disney World, Florida. This magical realm was governed by a unique council of wise and just stewards appointed by the kingdom itself, known as the Reedy Creek Improvement District. Under their watchful eye, the land flourished and its inhabitants reveled in the unending delights it had to offer.
As king, you need to understand that balance and respect all the creatures.
But one day, when the kingdom voiced its opinion on matters outside of its land, the evil king, Ron DeSantis, vowed to punish the kingdom for going against his policies. This is the part of the story where Disney took a public stand on Florida's so-called Don't Say Gay legislation, which limits classroom instruction on sexual orientation and gender identity in public schools. Bob Chapek, then CEO of Disney, expressed to shareholders and to the public that Disney leaders were opposed to the bill. The evil king appointed a special group of magistrates, handpicked by him, that would take control over the magical lands, stripping it of any future use of magic, breaking the standing agreement and trust several generations old. This is when Governor DeSantis urged Florida's Republican-controlled legislature to pass a bill that would eliminate Disney's handpicked district board members' powers by transferring it to the newly created Central Florida Tourism Oversight District, which is made up of DeSantis' political appointees. Nevertheless, a new hero by the name of Bob Iger rose to the occasion and beat the king at his own game, saving the magical kingdom from future tyranny. How did the hero save the kingdom? You see, the chosen hero assembled the leaders of the kingdom and drafted a magical contract right under the evil king's nose and activated its magic only one day before the evil king's troops arrived at the kingdom's doorstep, stripping them of any power, rendering them useless. In the real world, one day before DeSantis signed the legislation into law, the Reedy Creek Board of Supervisors met and adopted new contractual provisions that intended to outlast DeSantis and like-minded supporters by rendering useless future enforcement powers over Disney by the new board. The Reedy Creek provisions preserve Disney's development authority in perpetuity, or at least until 21 years after the death of the last survivor of the descendants of King Charles III, King of England, according to the measure. This essentially preserves Disney's authority to govern their special district, and although will no longer have its own handpicked members serving on the special district's board, Disney was able to at least severely handicap the incoming board members for several decades to come. A story like this is certainly uncommon in our world of crude and unfair fates, but sometimes heroes do rise to the occasion. And although their stories are not as fantastical as in Disney's movies, there are certain traits that make them successful. Someone like Bob Iger was not trained by a magical wizard or chosen by a mythical sword. He is but a mere mortal who has had the courage to stand against adversity, both within the company and in external matters. His strong leadership and commitment to doing what is right have allowed him to triumph over his bullies, ensuring that Disney remains a force to be reckoned with in the corporate world. As we just found out in Disney's own fairy tale, it was Iger's courage that allowed the company to take swift and decisive action against Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' plan by finalizing a legal agreement that transferred these powers directly to Disney for 30 years just in the nick of time. During Disney's first shareholder call with Bob Iger after he returned as CEO, he said that the relationship with the state government should be a two-way street. He added, "One point on this is that any action that thwarts those efforts simply to retaliate for a position that the company took sounds not just anti-business, but it sounds anti-Florida," Iger said. And I'll just leave it at that. Comments like these show that Iger is not afraid to call out his bullies, even in such formal and conspicuous meetings. But Iger's courageous actions are not limited to defending Disney's business interests. He has also been a strong advocate for national unity and moral leadership. He was one of the first CEOs to stand behind Merck CEO Ken Frazier when he resigned from then-President Donald Trump's Business Advisory Council in response to the president's controversial remarks about violent extremists. Iger also demonstrated his commitment to moral leadership when he promptly canceled the popular ABC TV sitcom Roseanne following its star's racist rant on Twitter. Iger's courage has not come at the expense of Disney's performance. During his tenure, the company's total shareholder return was an impressive 578%, compared with 140% for the S&P 500. He also added 70,000 jobs to the company, proving that courage and strong leadership can go hand in hand with business success. When activist Nelson Peltz tried to challenge Iger's leadership, Iger stood firm and refused to concede to his demands, even when analysts advised him otherwise. Peltz eventually backed down as Disney stock soared, proving that Iger's courage and strategic thinking were the right approach. In the face of bullies and adversity, Iger has consistently shown that he's not afraid to stand up for what's right, both for his company and for society at large. His courageous actions serve as a shining example for other business leaders, proving that success can be achieved without compromising one's principles or integrity. This is what makes Fantastical Tales a reality: a strong will to challenge adversity when it's due, and the persistence to call out bullies when they cross the line. As Iger told his shareholders, "Those that stood in silence, in some ways, still carry the stain of indifference. So as long as I'm on the job, I'm going to continue to be guided by a sense of decency and respect, and trust our instincts that when we do weigh in, we weigh in because the issue is truly relevant to our business and to the people that work for us." In doing so, Iger has left an indelible mark on Disney and the corporate world, demonstrating the power of courage in the face of bullies and adversity.